So, can Nigerians trust their judges and justices to make decisions on the legal challenges to the presidential election that can help rebuild trust and secure this country's democracy? Can the judiciary strike a note that might be seen by the political establishment as discordant, but which would ultimately change this country for the better? After the rather stark integrity issues raised by the recent elections, people of all stripes are coming together to work for what they hope will be the greater good of Nigeria, such as institutional integrity. And next in line for many is the judiciary. How far does this country need new thinking in the judiciary to really put on trial an electoral system that's accused of widespread malpractices and rampant corruption, and that many believe deprives its citizens of the right for their votes to count? As we are forced to contend with a substantial diversion of judicial time and resources, which is the unfortunate consequence of the perceived failure of INEC to conduct an election that Nigerians can believe in, do we have sufficient levers of honesty and trust within the judiciary to bring the electoral system to justice? Or is the judiciary itself crying out for fundamental reforms? Well, joining me to discuss this and what it means for Nigerians is a distinguished observer of and participant in the Nigerian justice scene, the law professor and former chief judge of Anambra State, Professor Peter Umeadi, who was the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, or APGA, in the 2023 election. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Charles, for inviting me.
Real honor to have you here.
Thank you.
Take us into the heart of the Nigerian judiciary. What do you think needs to fall in place to enable the judiciary and those judges sitting on the panels to get to a place where the decision they make about this presidential election challenge is seen by most to be justice delivered?
The most important aspect is the dexterity of the lawyers who are bringing their cases before the tribunals. It is a work-intensive element, and because you have to traverse all the points that you need to win, and you don't take anything for granted, and you have to place them before the courts. And like we'll say in this opening, you don't dump evidence on the court and walk away. You have to take them one by one and then be able to put them within the time that you have so that the court can flow with you and give a judgment that will be backed up by the facts which you have presented, matched with the law.
But the problem, of course, is that most people don't believe that that is what judges and justices do. They believe they traipse off on their own tangent, irrespective of the quality of arguments that's put to them. That's why there is a sense that the judiciary is heavily politicized.
No, that is not so. There are a lot of judicial officers who take their jobs seriously. And many of them, don't forget, are young, and they want to grow in the job as a judicial officer, and they know they have to account for whatever work they do, especially when the work gets, when the stakes get higher. So that is not correct. It's something people want to talk about. But I assure you that in an election tribunal, as in the day that we have it now, everybody has to do diligence, and that you must emphasize on that.
What about the suggestion that members of the judiciary, not all of them, but at least some of them, a significant number of them, are exposed to compromise and corruption?
Oh yes, it is something that you get to find out from the first day that you are appointed a judge. It's like wind, you know. No matter how much you try to bat your doors and all, they have to find some ways to come in, and there are pressures. You get phone calls from your relations, and they say they want to come and say ABC. Say, can't you say that on the phone? He says, no, it's nothing, just to see you. And the moment he steps into your sitting room, he begins to tell you, oh, there's that little case of no consequence that is before you, and that there's not what XYZ. What do you do? Now, I remember when we were made judges in 1997, these issues came up. So there's no way you can stop them. So it is for you as a judge, when they filter in and begin to say A, B, C, D, you nod and then take it on them, and then you go on, and if you don't do what they want once, twice, they will stop coming.
But I mean, you were the chief judge of Anambra State, which makes you not just the senior judge, but also the administrative head of the judiciary in Anambra State. I mean, did you come across instances where judges, magistrates, and all the rest of them had appeared to have been compromised?
Oh, yes. There are a lot of cases like that. And then of course, you know, I was also a member of the National Judicial Council, which was kept busy, very busy. And yes, there were cases where, you know, judges could not explain how they handled their cases, about the complaints that came. And of course, some of those judges were disciplined. Many of them lost their jobs. And in the states, in the Judicial Service Commission, of which I was chairman, a lot of magistrates had questions to answer and had a lot of explanations to make. But you find out that, you know, I'm not holding the case for the judiciary, as it were, in terms of corruption, but the truth has to be told. If you come with a lot of petitions, maybe and 80% of the petitions don't stick, then there's something wrong with those who are making the complaints.
Right, but at a critical time like this, I mean, you're in a very unique position of having been a judicial officer, you're a law professor, and you're also a politician. Because, I mean, you are the presidential candidate of APGA, which is one of the big parties, if you like, in Nigeria. This is a time that it seems as if the judiciary itself, given these legal challenges and the splits, political splits in Nigeria, that the judiciary itself is facing a crisis of legitimacy, at least in the perception of the public. And many fear that in the discharge of these election-related adjudications, that it'll be compromised. How much does this present a big challenge to the judicial establishment?
No, the work of a judge does not end with this matter of election petitions we are facing now.
Well, yes, but obviously it's a critical point.
It's a critical point, yeah. Because, and everybody looking up to it. Why I'm saying that is that is what the judges do all their work, and
right.
That is what they're expected to do. It's not going to be different from what other work they're doing, no matter how a little you may grade that.
You don't think so? When it has to deal with the president of the country, who gets to wear the crown?
What I mean is that what bothers A may not be what bothers B. If you're thinking that is all there is in the world, a man who's losing his produce, which he needs for sustenance, may not be as much interested in who becomes the president eventually. To you, as a politician, that is the issue. But let me say it this way: the judges know that the stakes are as high as you know. So they will be more careful. And that is why I keep stressing the issue of diligence from the lawyers to bring their cases before the courts. And if you go to the laws itself, you'll be reading things that are key. It says the case you're making, will you make a substantial difference? That is part of the law. And that is your duty, coming to the tribunal to show that it makes a substantial difference.
But given what you just said, that, I mean, the judges are aware of the stakes being high, but they're also aware of that perception that they potentially could be compromised, and the sense that the judiciary in Nigeria is, if not absolutely, certainly partially corrupt. I mean, should the judiciary as a whole be making the explicit and deliberate calculation to seize the opportunity of this bitterly disputed election to focus on rescuing their image, which has, as you correctly identified, to some extent has been on a slump for decades?
Yes. The one thing I will stand on firmly here is that for all times it will be justice according to law. And what I got from my former Chief Judge, Justice Obiara is this, of blessed memory.
I know him.
That's right.
Yes.
The judiciary especially is not where you come to be popular. It's justice according to law. So for a judge doing his work with the evidence presented to him, it is his duty to return what will stand for that case for all times. Because all cases must be done according to what is brought forward. And no judge will want for you now, as a presenter, for all you have painted, for him to be on the side of those who will cheer him, who consider him a populist judge, to go and do what could not be defended. No, it doesn't run that way.
Yeah, the problem, of course, is that there is a certain opacity to the judiciary. I mean, ostensibly because they're supposed to remain, if you like, aloof, above the fray, as it were, in society. And it is that opacity that worries people, because they don't know what's going on behind the opaqueness of the judiciary.
No, it's not so. It's a wrong perception, with due respect, because the judge was not there when those votes went on. The judge is not a part of it. He's an arbiter. So he's now sitting here and you're bringing all your facts before him. And it's your duty to make sure that those facts stick, and then he can marry them with the law and come to a conclusion.
Yeah, but that is the broad strokes of it. In fact, I mean, we do need some honesty about why we are where we are in the judiciary in this country. And that has to do with allegations of corruption, as well as things like a lack of funding and a lack of investment in Nigeria's courts and judiciary. I mean, all those things conspire to have an impact, don't they?
Now, then that is where you come. Now, instead of the people who are talking about corruption should first of all go about the issue of lack of funding, which have been in the forefront all my years working as a judge. It's about financial autonomy. The day you have financial autonomy for all the arms of government, all the troubles you're seeing will disappear. Because nobody will now tell you, as an arm of government, how to get about doing what you're doing. Now, you're talking about corruption. If you're going cap in hand to another arm of government to get what you need, and you need that even for materials you need to do the election tribunal you're talking about, setting them up, the personnel, the housing, the whereabouts, the generator, the fuel, if you get my point.
Yeah, so it raises the specter of compromise.
No, it does. Of course, it does all over. And why the regular press like you don't get involved in that in the first place and wait for an election cycle for you to raise it is mind-boggling.
That's a very good point. So given your considerable experience as a jurist, someone on the bench, someone in the bar, someone who's in the academia of law, I mean, what new and perhaps radical reforms would you propose?
Well, I've always, talking about my perception of Nigeria today, it is not a coincidence that I ran with the triple banner of the rule of law, separation of powers, and due process. And I say that is the answer to the problems that we have today, especially separation of powers. You link it to financial autonomy. There is nothing else you do. If you do that, the restructuring you're clamoring for will be waiting for you at dawn. It is the basic thing. But don't forget, and like I got to know while I was in the National Judicial Council, now, even if you talk about financial autonomy, somebody is making the budget. Somebody is using a red pen to run a line on a budget. Until you have it in reality, that all arms of government will go there to defend their budgets and get the money sent to them directly, then you have not started. So it's the answer is separation of powers. That's the basic answer. Key to the rule of law.
Right.
Then financial autonomy. That is the answer.
So given what you've just told us, and given the fact that the judiciary has not had that autonomy and that, if you like, separation of powers, your sense then is that if this does not happen, as it has not, you are of the feeling, as many are, that justice will retreat into an area where it becomes relevant to fewer and fewer Nigerians.
No, that is the gargantuan work that the judiciary has been doing, which it needs to be praised. This is the situation which the judiciary is in, and this is the situation where those that I had occasion once to mention as the giants of the judiciary were, when they did that Lakami case, just during the war, as it were, just as we were coming out. And they looked the federal government in the case and said, no, what you were doing were null and void. That's the judiciary for you. So what there is that that's what has been happening in all the courts you're going where petty magistrate causes are being tried daily. You know what I'm saying? That are not as big as presidential, who is the president of Nigeria. And the judicial officers are standing and saying who is right and who is wrong. And many of these judicial officers don't have policemen in their courts. Many of these magistrates have people brought to them from prison. They break away from the courts and run away. There's nobody to stop them. Many of the judges you talk about don't have policemen taking them home. In fact, many of the magistrates don't have cars. When they finish sending people to prison or refusing bail, they have to go home in public transport. That is the situation you're facing. So you must put all these things together. But let me tell you, no, the answer is no when it comes to big cases like the election tribunal. And I say it again, many of these judges who have come to the bench, they have a lot at stake. And many of them are young, and like I said, they want to be promoted, they want to get to the peak of their career, and they are the ones standing, giving those judgments you can rely on. There are some errant ones. There are some ones that you don't know where they're coming from. But how about the majority? They are being done by those who are also in denial of what they need to be judges. So that is the answer. In spite of all that denial, you still have judicial officers, and I'm standing for them because I've been one of the chief judges, and I think I can chip that in here, who provided the most for my judiciary when I was there. I was there for 8 years, and in the 8 years that I was chief judge, I had about 30 courts. All my courts were air-conditioned because that's how to work as a judge. Of course, then, I must tell you, the Judicial Service Commission were paying 200,000 naira a month per judge. I don't know if it is still there. So I met with my judges and in Anambra State, and we prioritized what we wanted to do with our money. So we thought about bringing diesel, bringing generators, and then having our courts air-conditioned. So you come into a court, you're there, you can walk from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Now, I didn't hear of any judiciary that had that done. That was our priority. So that's why we got the money. That's what we did. So it could be better if we were funded. But in spite of the lack, I think it's better for me to come back to that and end there, in spite of the lack. No, there are many judges who are ready to do the needful. Now, let the lawyers, let the litigants go back and do what they are supposed to do diligently. And if there is a miscarriage of justice, let us see it. Of course, there's the appeal. And that's the emphasis.
Yes.
And that is what we should say as a country. We shouldn't just be stacking the blame. So I'm trying to go deep into that answer, irrespective of how the rots and in taking care of, because you see, the Nigerian public servants, they don't understand the metamorphosis of a lawyer into a judge. Once you're made a judge, you need a minimum of a driver, 2 clerks, a typist to look after your business in court. Not to talk about those who are supposed to help you at home, to stop people from coming to your house or, barging in and all that. Do you understand? But they don't get used to that. They don't understand. The public servants, they think the judiciary is overbearing. They think the judiciary is asking for too much. And then they are the same people that come and give all these things that you read, and as a publicist, you want to bring it forward to me to say, why are these things not happening? We could fix the judiciary as a first point of contact to repair the society. And don't forget, if you have that, the judge is also questionable. If there is rule of law, if a judge is corrupt and is found guilty, he should answer for the law.
That's a very good analysis that you just gave us. So let's move away slightly from that. And let me ask you what you think of the idea of televising the proceedings of the legal challenges to this presidential election as a way of ensuring that justice is seen to be done.
That's again a fallacy. And it has to be said as strongly as that. I do not believe in that. I think it's a distraction. Now, I'll tell you how. You see, and I'm talking about a courtroom. In a line, what I miss from being a judge is the serenity of my courtroom. You could hear a pin drop. You could hear somebody cough. I'm not the type of judge that when you cough, you want to find a man who has coughed. He could cough. Maybe anything can cause it. Or his phone rings accidentally. You want to seize the phone. No. But that is how a court is run. What I hear is the hum of my air conditioner. Now, it's the distraction to bring people to be televising a sitting, because there are a lot of things that come into presenting your case in a court, in a room, within the time frame that you have. You need all, the serenity that you require.
Yeah, but you could certainly argue that the court is a public area. I mean, the public are allowed to attend, and it is on the basis of that public's right to attend a hearing or a court proceeding that the journalism gets its constitutional authority. It's based on the power of the people. So to fix camera, we're not having reporters standing there reporting. They've just got cameras there watching what you're doing. That's all. The camera is simply, just like you're sitting here talking, the camera is watching you, but that's what's wrong with that?
It doesn't go like that. I've been a lawyer, worked as a litigation lawyer, and then I've been a judge. I tell you, most people who come to, and I say this with all sense of responsibility and respect, most people who come to court, no matter how much school they have gone to, they don't understand what has transpired in the court hall. Once they come out, they crowd. When you see them crowding their lawyer, you say, what happened? They've been there all day. Yeah. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah, because you use language that nobody understands.
Thank you. And then the Supreme Court has to bring it down. Stop using all that Latin. Yeah. Say some of them in English. It's not going to change. If you bring a camera into the room, they're not going to know what is going to happen except for them to bring mischief.
Yeah, but the point is the point is that you will have people who are not in the courtroom, but who are watching the proceedings and who will be legal analysts, legal experts, who will interpret for the public, just like we journalists interpret a lot of things for them, interpret what is going on. A final word from you.
Yes, I tell you, I delivered judgment in election petition that was seen all over the world. It was televised by the permission of the President of the Court of Appeal in 2008. You can televise the judgment. That's the point I'm making. And don't forget, everything you want to argue, everything you want to say is in that judgment. You can televise the judgment, you can go on appeal on that. But you don't have, for you to bring it, for you to begin to get blow by blow, what happens is it causes a distraction. Then, like we like to pander, to play to the gallery, what has happened to the verbatim recording that we all talked about, which will save you all that? Where has it worked? Lagos put in a lot of money for that. Where did you find the electricity and the machine to get it done? Even overseas, when you did it, you still have to compare it with the manual thing that they did. So, but why do we always bring these things when there's work to be done? You know what I'm saying? And everybody begins to, well, we're there all the while when the Electoral Act were being fashioned. How many groups led by Arise went to see that this is part of the law?
Well, the circumstances were different then. The circumstances are different now. But on that note, I want to say it's been an absolute pleasure having you here, Professor Umeadi. I mean, your analysis, very, very interesting and exceedingly illuminating. Thank you very much indeed. And Professor Peter Umeadi is a distinguished participant in the Nigerian justice scene. He's a law professor, former chief judge of Anambra State, and he was also the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, or APGA, in the 2023 election. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles Anyagolo.